What's going on, guys? Knight here. Today we're doing a beginner's or intermediate's guide to limited rare recruits and One Piece treasure cruise. So here we have the list of all the limited rare recruits that are available in OPTC, and I'm just gonna go through the list of them and then tell you which ones that I would recommend pulling for, which ones are pretty outdated, and which ones are just pretty good in general. So without further ado, let's start. So the first one is LRR Kid. He's not really that good. He's pretty outclassed. He's a 2x striker, attack booster, and he HP cuts you as well. So not really that good. So I wouldn't recommend pulling for him. Next up we have is Fisher Tiger, and he's a pretty cool character in general, but as a limited rare recruit, he's pretty bad. He's a 1.75 attack booster for powerhouse characters, and he boosts the attack for powerhouse for 3 turns. So he gets outclassed by Oven, who has a much shorter cooldown and just a way better character in general. So I wouldn't recommend pulling for Fisher Tiger as well. Then we have limited rare recruit Aokiji or Kuzan, who is pretty cool. He is attack booster for shooters, and he's a follow and turn attack booster. He's not really that good since shooters aren't really that good, but you can use him potentially in stuff like the Capone Force, so he's not bad to have, and stuff similar to that where you need a follow and turn attack booster, but he gets pretty outclassed by units such as Flambe, so I'd rather just use Flambe, who's a 3-turn attack booster after you hit, I believe it's 4 or 5 perfect, something like that. So it's just better to use Flambe, but still pretty useful, I guess, in some situations. Next up we have is limited rare recruit Law, who sucks. Unfortunately, he's a 1.5 color affinity for slashers, which is pretty crappy, but he's one of the few or the only limited rare recruit characters whose voice, so that's pretty cool to know. Next up we have is limited rare recruit Akainu, who's pretty cool. He makes in orbs beneficial for driven characters as a sailor ability, and he's a 2x orb booster for driven characters, which is pretty cool. I probably would recommend pulling for him, I guess, even though drivens aren't really used that much. If you use characters like Legend, Judge, 6 plus, he's really great for that if you want to run a driven team, but other than that, not really used too often. Next up, we have limited rare recruit Jinbei, who is 2.5 chain locker, I believe. Let me check. Jimbo. Nope, not it. Quick. Jimbo. His art's really cool. I like it. If your captain's fighter, change adjacent orbs into matching and lock chain by 2.5. He's okay. 2.5 chain lock isn't really that good, but he has a short cooldown and cool art, so that's that. But he's not really that good. Next up, we have is limited rare recruit Beckman. He is actually okay. He's a self-conditional for delay, I believe, if I recall correctly. Let's look him up real quick. And Beckman. Yeah, delays enemies for 1 turn. Captain Cerebro. 1.5 and change orbs into adjacent. So he's actually pretty decent for stuff like Kuzna Battle, because I remember there's one time that I wanted to use someone like that, but then he gets outclassed by, if you have the raid that's on global only right now, which is the Shanks and Mihawk, who is a 1.75 delay conditional, and they're really good. But yeah, he gets outclassed by them, but he's decent if you want to use something like that for Kuzna Battle. So there's that. Then we have Kizaru, who sucks. He's like a block orb remover and like a 1.5 chain boost. Really crappy. I wouldn't pull for him. Then we have Bindy World, who's really good. He completely removes attack down, and he also removes barriers by 1 turn or 2 turns, something like that. He's a really good character. Kind of gets replaced by Weevil, but Weevil does only removes up to 20 turns of attack down. So if you get more than 20 turns of attack down, then LRR Bindy World is your guy. Next up we have is Leo, and Leo's alright. He removes paralysis by 3 turns, and then he also removes not increase, I think it's percent shield by 3 turns, and he also does 60 times his attack and like additional damage, like the Rate Sabo special. So he's also a pretty nice character. I used to use him a lot, but I probably wouldn't recommend pulling for him. Next up we have is limited rare recruit V1 Rogue, who is bad. He's like under 30%. You get a 2x fighter attack boost, which is like, yeah, I wouldn't pull for him. Next up we have is limited rare recruit Kobe, who's really cool. He's one of the few units that completely removes bind on the character, and it's only for one character though, but he's still pretty good. He has a sailor ability. He makes Psy Orbs beneficial for driven characters, and then he also is a 1.75 driven attack booster, and I believe he also locks orbs for 1 turn, if I remember correctly, but overall, pretty good character. I recommend pulling from. Next up, we have is limited rare recruit Hawkins, who's pretty cool as well. If your captain is a cerebral character, he'll completely remove paralysis, which is pretty nice. But then again, we have units such as Stampede Luffy, who does that as a captain. So you can always live without having Hawkins. But still, if you were to pull for him, I think it would be pretty nice, since a lot of cerebral legends are pretty top tier in my opinion. Next up we have is limited rare recruit Bonnie, who's pretty OP. I would say she's one of the best limited rare recruits. She, if your captain is free spirit, let's just read out the full thing because I don't remember it exactly. Bonnie. Bonnie reduces bind and paralysis by 10 turns, recover 50 times her RCV and HP, changes block bomb into RCV orbs, and if your captain is free spirit, reduces RCV down, silence, blindness by 5 turns. So she's a pretty good character. You can use her outside of free spirit teams as well, which is really great. So highly recommend it. Limited rare recruit character. Next up we have is limited rare recruit Koala, who's also pretty good for she's a fighter 2 times orb booster, but and she removes block orbs, but only when there's a delay conditional, but usually there's a delay conditional in a lot of content, especially harder content, so she's pretty usable. Next up, we have his limited rare recruit Moria, who is pretty good. He is a direct chain locker, which is basically a dime a dozen nowadays. But he also, if the enemy is delayed, he'll do like 1,000,000 damage, I believe, which is pretty cool. Let me just make sure. I believe it was like 1,000,000 damage. Moria, it. Gecko Moria. 3 times chain lock reduces increased damage taken by 5 turns. I didn't even know that. He's pretty cool. And if the enemy is delayed at the time, deals 1,000,000 fixed damage to all enemies. Yeah. So he's a pretty solid unit. I would recommend pulling for him as well. Next up, we have this limited recruit Tashigi. She's really good. She's a 3-turn 2.75 chain locker. She also removes increased damage taken, also removes attack down, and she's just a really great character in general. She's still used a lot today, so I'd highly recommend pulling for her. Then we have limited recruit Dofi, who's also a pretty decent unit. He removes block orbs for shooter characters and changes them into mansion. Also does a little HP cut and allows all shooter specials to go through barriers. So really nice if you like to use like units such as Legend Zephyr, so you can HP cut through barriers and whatnot, which is really nice. Next up, we have his limited recruit killer, who is pretty crappy, if I'm not gonna lie. If the enemy is under 50%, I believe he like does a color affinity, and it's not even that good of a color affinity. I think it's like 1.5, but let me make sure. Massacre killer. 1.75 if the characters 50%, blah blah blah, 1.5, otherwise 1.75 color affinity for 3 turns. Honestly, you still never use this guy, so he's pretty crappy, if I'm not gonna lie. But limited recruit Vivi though, she's also really good. She'll give adjacent meat orbs, and then if you hit 2 perfects on the next turn, she gives I want to say it's like a 2x chain lock, something like that. VV quick. Three X chain lock, my bad. Reduces cooldowns of all enemies by 1, change block and adjacent orbs into RCV orbs, that's really good. And during that turn, if you hit 2 perfects on the next turn, she'll make the chain multiplier 3x for 3 turns, which is really great. Useful in a lot of situations. Next up, we have his limited recruit Hody, who is okay. He's a 2.25 orb booster for powerhouse characters, but I believe there's like a certain condition you have to hold. But even then, I think the better 2.25 powerhouse orb booster would be Raid Ace. But let me make sure what Hody does. This 50 times attack and strength damage to all enemies. Change orbs in the left column into dex strength psi. Orbs in the right TND quick int. If your friend captain's orb is strength, dex, or RCV, which he guarantees. Yeah, he guarantees the dex or strength. Or amplified orbs for powerhouse characters by 2.25 for 1 turn. So he's actually pretty decent, I guess. I never really see him used, but he's usable. Next up, we have limited recruit Usopp, who removes 5 turns of threshold and percent shield, I believe. Let me just make sure. Usopp. Oh no, he has a different name, I believe. Let's see if we can find him under Usopp. Oh, Usoland, yeah. Usopp cuts HP of one enemy by 20%, reduce threshold damage, attack up, and end of turn damage, percent cut buffs by 7 turns. That's really good. And if enemy has delayed debuff protector or debuff protection at the time, 0.75 chain multiplier for 1 turn, and makes strength quick and dex orbs beneficial for shooter characters for 3 turns. So if you use shooter select, he's pretty good. Personally, I never really used him a lot, even after I pulled him, like I had Capone and Zephyr in them. And there was like only a few times where I was like, oh, I'm gonna use Usopp. But if you like to use Capone, I'd probably say he's worth pulling for. Next up, we have is limited recruit Pedro. He's really good. If you have 5 units on your team that are slasher at least, he does a 2 times conditional for defense down, which is really good, and it's self-procced as well. Really great unit. I recommend pulling for him. Next up, we have is Puddin, who's a really good unit. I'll just look up the information because I don't remember it all off the top. But she's one of the few silence removers for Driven, which is really good. She's basically like Shirahoshi Valentine's, which is really great. But her special is reduce silence duration by 5 turns, reduce enemies' percent shield by and resilience buff by 5 turns, change block and badly matching orbs into G orbs, and then if you have 6 driven characters on your team, change all color orbs into matching, and then she'll have a 5k heal every 3 turns, which is really great. For 3 turns, not every 3 turns. So she's really great. Frankie, though, he sucks. He's like a 2x attack booster for Powerhouse. No, a 2.25 attack booster, but it's like a really um niche one. It's like if there's like a poison delay or something stupid. Not really a good character. Next up, we have his limited recruit Kinemon, who's actually pretty good for slashers. He's a 2 times color affinity for slashers and also removes chain lock and chain down for slashers as well for 7 turns. So really good for the boy V2 Mihawk if you have him. So I recommend pulling for him if you have him. But still, for the 2x color affinity for slasher, I think is still worth the pull for. Even though slashers aren't really that good, but whatever, it's still decent. Next up, we have limited recruit Orochi, who's really good. So first turn, if you when you activate a special, it has like a 80% damage reduction, and then after you hit 4 perfects on the following turn, he's a 2.25 orb booster for fighters, and he makes psi orbs beneficial for fighters. So he's a really great unit in my opinion. Really good for the first Kuzna battle. So he should be coming up really soon on global. So be looking forward to that. Next up, we have limited recruit Carrot, who's really good. If your captain is Free Spirit, you will do delay 2 times conditional for delayed characters, which is really good. And I believe she also changes orbs, if I'm remembering correctly. Let me just make sure. Carrot. Reduces enemy threshold damage reduction and percent damage reduction by 3 turns, really great. Reduces bind duration by 5 turns, which is great. Bomb, G, and empty orbs and badly matching into matching orbs. So that's also really great. So a really superb character. Highly recommend pulling for her. Then we have limited rare recruit Marco, who just came out really recently on Japan. What a great unit. He's a 2x color affinity for powerhouse characters. He also completely removes anti-heal, RCV down, and something else. Marco. Strength. He also reduces your HP to 1, which is okay, it's not too bad. Also removes poison and blindness, so that's really good. Really great unit, highly recommend with pulling for him. And then last we have the boy Caesar Clan. He's a really great unit. He removes bind and chain down and chain lock by 7 turns, and if you hit 4 perfects on the following turn, he becomes a 1.1x chain booster, similar to Legend Cracker, which is really great. And he also removes poison, and let me just make sure I have all the information. Caesar. Completely removes poison, chain lock, and 0.5 chain for at first, and then if you hit 3 perfects, 1.3 chain on the following turn. So really great unit. So to wrap it up, units I would recommend pulling for would be him, her, her. Usopp, sure. Boop, 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 boop. And actually Mario's pretty neat. And yeah, I think these are like the staple limited rare recruits that I would aim for any new account, any intermediate account, or whatever. So just even high level players I recommend pulling for these characters. So yeah, that's gonna conclude this video. Hopefully you like this. If you want me to do another video relating to other characters, I can look at treasure map characters, support characters, just rare recruits in general, legends as well, 6+s, limited time special characters and whatnot. Anything of that nature I can do as well. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.